The wedding guests gasped when the groom finally lifted my veil. They weren't shocked because I looked beautiful. They were shocked because the man standing beside me was Ethan Kang, the cold, billionaire CEO who had spent 35 years rejecting every woman who came near him. Magazine covers called him the Ice King. Business rivals feared him. Socialites chased him. Models begged for one date. He refused them all. Yet somehow he had spent millions of dollars to marry an ordinary woman like me. What nobody in that luxurious ballroom knew was that our marriage wasn't a love story. It was a secret deal, and if the truth came out before midnight, everything would be destroyed. My name is Lily Carter, and this is how my life changed. The moment I accepted the most unbelievable proposal anyone could imagine. I never expected my biggest problem that morning would become a billionaire asking me to be his wife. Just 48 hours earlier, I was standing outside a small neighborhood bakery, counting the last $12 in my purse and wondering whether I should buy bread or pay for the bus ride to my second job. Life had become a constant battle after my mother's medical bills swallowed every penny I had saved. I worked mornings at a flower shop and evenings at a bookstore, smiling through exhaustion because giving up had never been an option. Kindness was the only thing I had left to offer the world. My best friend Emma often told me I was too soft for this cruel society. One day people will take advantage of your heart, she always warned. I laughed every time. Maybe they would, but I couldn't stop helping others just because someone else might be selfish. That afternoon, Emma begged me to attend her family's annual charity gala. "Please," she said, "my uncle will be there, and everyone treats it like some royal event. I don't want to survive it alone." I refused at first. I didn't own a fancy dress, and I certainly didn't belong among billionaires. Emma solved both problems by forcing one of her elegant gowns into my hands. "You're coming," she insisted. No arguments. I had heard stories about her mysterious uncle Ethan Kang, 35 years old, CEO of one of the world's largest technology companies. Brilliant, ruthless, emotionally unavailable. Reporters had spent years trying to discover whether he secretly dated anyone, but every investigation ended the same way. Ethan Kang seemed completely uninterested in romance. Some even believed he would never marry. Others whispered that his heart had frozen long ago. I didn't expect to meet him. People like him lived in another universe. When we arrived at the Grand Hotel, crystal chandeliers sparkled above hundreds of wealthy guests dressed like Hollywood stars. I felt completely out of place. Emma disappeared to greet relatives, leaving me alone near the entrance. That's when I noticed an elderly waiter struggling to carry a heavy tray filled with expensive champagne glasses. Everyone ignored him as they rushed toward famous guests. One careless push from another attendee sent the tray tilting dangerously. Without thinking, I ran forward and grabbed the opposite side before dozens of glasses crashed onto the marble floor. The old man looked embarrassed. "Thank you," he whispered. "My hands aren't as steady anymore." I smiled. Everyone needs help sometimes. Together, we safely carried the tray to another table. I never realized someone had been watching the entire moment from the second-floor balcony. Ethan Kang. While powerful investors fought for his attention, his eyes remained fixed on the woman in the borrowed dress, helping an elderly employee nobody else even noticed. Later that evening, I accidentally wandered into the hotel's quiet garden while searching for fresh air. My cheap shoes were already hurting my feet, and I wanted 5 peaceful minutes away from endless conversations about stocks and luxury vacations. I sat beside the fountain, unaware that someone else was already there. "You don't seem impressed by wealth." The deep voice startled me. I looked up and froze. Ethan Kang stood a few feet away in a perfectly tailored black suit. Even under the garden lights, his expression remained calm and unreadable. I stood immediately. "I'm sorry. I didn't know anyone was here." "You helped the waiter," he said instead of answering. I shrugged. Anyone would have. He studied me for several silent seconds. "No, they didn't." Something about his words made the night suddenly feel heavier. There wasn't arrogance in his voice, Only quiet observation. Before I could respond, Emma appeared from across the garden, calling my name. Ethan nodded politely and walked away without another word. I assumed that strange conversation would be our first and last meeting. I couldn't have been more wrong. The next morning, a sleek black car waited outside the flower shop where I worked. My coworkers stared through the window as a man in an expensive suit entered carrying a silver envelope. "Miss Lily Carter?" he asked. "Yes?" "Mr. Ethan Kang requests a private meeting." Every eye in the shop turned toward me. I honestly thought it was some elaborate misunderstanding. Why would a billionaire CEO want anything from someone who arranged bouquets for minimum wage? Curiosity defeated common sense. An hour later, I found myself sitting across from Ethan inside the top floor of his company's headquarters, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. He placed a simple folder on the table between us. "I want you to marry me." I laughed because it sounded impossible. He didn't. Slowly, the smile disappeared from my face. "You're serious?" "Completely." My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear myself think. "You don't even know me. I've spent the last 12 hours learning everything about you." That sentence should have terrified me. Instead, confusion overwhelmed every other emotion. "Why?" Ethan leaned back calmly. "Because I need a wife. And I believe you're the only person who can save more than just my reputation." I stared at him, unable to understand whether I had walked into a dream or a nightmare. He opened the folder. Inside was a contract worth millions of dollars, and one condition that would change both our lives forever. Lily's hands trembled as she stared at the contract. The number printed beside the settlement clause looked unreal. $10 million if she agreed to become Ethan Kang's legal wife for 1 year. Every medical bill her mother owed would disappear overnight. Her debts would vanish. She could finally stop working 2 exhausting jobs just to survive. But nothing about the offer made sense. She slowly looked up at Ethan. "Why me?" she asked again. Ethan folded his hands calmly. "Because money cannot buy what I need most. Trust." Lily frowned. "You barely know me." "I've learned enough," he replied. "Yesterday, you helped an elderly waiter when everyone else ignored him. Last month, you returned a wallet containing over $8,000 without taking a single dollar. 3 months ago, you secretly paid for a little girl's birthday flowers after her father couldn't afford them. 6 months ago, you donated bone marrow to someone you had never met." Lily's eyes widened. She had never told anyone about the bone marrow donation except her mother. "How do you know all that?" Ethan answered without emotion. "When I make important decisions, I investigate carefully." She felt uncomfortable. "So you investigated my entire life?" "Yes. That's creepy." "Perhaps." He didn't even try to defend himself. "But I had no intention of risking my family's future on someone dishonest." Lily stood up. "I'm sorry, Mr. Kang, but this is insane." She pushed the contract back toward him. "I appreciate the offer, but I'm not marrying a stranger for money." Ethan wasn't surprised. Instead, he quietly slid another document across the table. It wasn't another contract. It was a medical report. Lily recognized the hospital logo instantly. Her mother's name appeared across the top. She snatched it from the desk, panic filling her face. "What is this?" "Your mother's doctors scheduled another surgery," Ethan said softly. "Without it, they estimate she has less than 6 months." Lily felt the room spinning. She had known another operation might be necessary, but she never imagined it had become that urgent. Tears threatened to escape as she remembered her mother's cheerful smile that very morning, pretending everything was fine. Ethan continued speaking. "The procedure costs nearly $800,000. Lily whispered, "I don't have that kind of money." "I know." Silence filled the office. Ethan wasn't smiling. He wasn't manipulating her with fake sympathy. He was simply stating facts. Lily clenched the report tightly. "If I say yes, you'll pay for everything?" "Immediately." "What's the catch?" "Our marriage must appear completely real." She looked at him suspiciously. "Meaning?" "We attend public events together, live in the same house, convince the media and my board of directors that we're genuinely married." Lily blinked. That's it? Ethan hesitated for the first time. One more thing. What? No one can know it's a contract marriage. Not even Emma. Lily stared at him. Emma was her best friend since childhood. Keeping something this enormous secret felt impossible. Why? Ethan walked toward the giant window overlooking the city. His reflection appeared lonely against the glass. Because someone inside my own family wants me destroyed. Lily slowly lowered the report. Destroyed? If I remain unmarried, control of Kong Global transfers to another branch of my family within 6 months under my grandfather's will. Lily finally began understanding. So this isn't about love. Ethan gave a humorless smile. Love has never been part of my life. He turned to face her again. Marriage is simply the last requirement before I permanently become chairman. Then why not marry one of the hundreds of women chasing you? Lily asked. Ethan's expression became cold again. Because most of them don't want me. They want my company. Lily couldn't argue with that. Every magazine she had ever seen showed glamorous celebrities trying to get Ethan's attention. His wealth attracted everyone. His trust belonged to no one. Ethan walked back to the desk. Yesterday, when you saved that elderly waiter, you didn't know anyone important was watching. You expected nothing in return. He paused before continuing. That's the kind of person I need standing beside me. Lily looked away, overwhelmed. You're making me sound better than I am. No, Ethan answered quietly. I'm describing exactly what I saw. For the first time since entering his office, Lily noticed something hidden beneath his calm exterior. He looked exhausted. Not physically, but emotionally. Like someone who had spent years carrying responsibilities completely alone. She suddenly remembered Emma mentioning how Ethan lost both parents while still in college and built the company into a global empire before turning 35. Millions admired his success. Very few wondered what it had cost him. If I agree, Lily asked carefully, what happens after 1 year? We divorce peacefully. You'll keep every dollar. My company remains stable. Your mother receives the best medical care available. And if I refuse, Ethan answered honestly, I'll find another solution. But something in his eyes suggested he no longer believed another solution existed. Lily looked down at the contract again. Her heart screamed that marrying a stranger was a terrible idea. Yet every memory of her mother's gentle smile made saying no feel impossible. Before she could speak, Ethan's assistant suddenly burst through the office door without knocking. His face had gone completely pale. Mr. Kang, there's a serious problem. Ethan immediately stood. What happened? The assistant swallowed hard. Someone leaked confidential documents to the press, and every news channel is already reporting that you're secretly engaged to the daughter of your biggest business rival. Ethan's eyes narrowed dangerously. Who leaked it? We don't know. The assistant handed him a tablet. Headlines were spreading across every major news website. Reporters were already gathering outside the company headquarters. Ethan slowly looked back at Lily. It seems, he said quietly, our decision just became much more urgent. Lily stared at the flashing headlines on the tablet, her heart racing. Every major news outlet claimed Ethan Kang was preparing to marry the daughter of his fiercest business rival in a secret billion-dollar alliance. Photos of Ethan attending an old charity event with the woman were being recycled as proof. Social media exploded within minutes. Investors demanded answers. Reporters surrounded Kang Global headquarters, while television helicopters circled above the building. Ethan remained surprisingly calm. He handed the tablet back to his assistant. Prepare the legal team. Find the source of the leak. Say nothing to the media until I authorize it. The assistant nodded and hurried away. Lily looked at Ethan in disbelief. Someone is trying to ruin you. Ethan gave a small nod. Not just ruin me, force me into making a mistake. Who would do something like that? Someone who benefits if I lose control of my company. Lily slowly sat down again, trying to process everything. This wasn't simply a fake marriage anymore. Someone powerful was actively attacking Ethan from the shadows. Ethan poured 2 glasses of water and placed one in front of her. You should leave through the private elevator. Reporters haven't discovered it yet. Lily accepted the glass but didn't drink. If I walk away now, what will you do? Ethan answered honestly. Continue fighting. Alone? He remained silent. That silence answered her question better than words ever could. Lily thought about her own life. She had spent years believing that wealthy people had perfect lives while ordinary people carried all the pain. Sitting across from Ethan made her realize money could solve many problems, but it couldn't buy loyalty, trust, or peace. Suddenly, her phone rang. It was the hospital. Her hands shook as she answered. Hello? The nurse's voice sounded gentle but urgent. Miss Carter, your mother's condition has become unstable. The doctor would like to begin treatment immediately, but we still haven't received confirmation regarding financial approval. Lily closed her eyes. I understand. I'll be there soon. After hanging up, she could barely breathe. Ethan didn't ask what happened. He already knew. Lily stood and walked toward the window, staring at the city below. Her mother had sacrificed everything to raise her after her father died. She had worked double shifts for years, skipped meals so Lily could eat, and never once complained. Now, when her mother needed help most, Lily had nothing left to give except impossible choices. Tears quietly rolled down her cheeks. She quickly wiped them away, embarrassed. Ethan spoke softly. You don't have to hide your tears. Lily laughed bitterly. I've always believed hard work could fix everything. But this, she looked at him. This is bigger than me. Ethan understood that feeling better than anyone. After a long silence, Lily asked one final question. If we get married, will you ever expect me to fall in love with you? Ethan looked genuinely surprised. No. Or share your bed. Never unless you choose it yourself. Or give up my freedom? No. Lily searched his face for any sign of deception but found none. Everything about him remained direct, almost painfully honest. Finally, she whispered, Then why do I feel like this deal will change both our lives forever? Ethan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked toward the crowded streets below, where hundreds of reporters waited outside. Because, he finally said, people who enter my world rarely leave unchanged. Lily took one deep breath, then another. Every logical reason told her to refuse. Yet every beat of her heart reminded her that walking away meant watching her mother lose the chance to survive. She slowly returned to the desk. Without another word, she picked up the pen lying beside the contract. Ethan watched silently as she signed her name across the final page. The moment the ink dried, everything changed. Ethan signed beside her, closed the folder, and extended his hand. Welcome to the Kang family, Mrs. Kang. Lily hesitated before shaking it. The instant their hands met, the office doors burst open again. Emma rushed inside, completely out of breath. Lily, she shouted, thank goodness I found you. She froze the moment she saw their joined hands and the signed contract on the desk. Her eyes moved from Lily to Ethan and back again. Wait, she whispered. Please tell me I'm imagining this. Lily opened her mouth, but no words came out. Emma's expression shifted from confusion to complete shock. Uncle Ethan, she said slowly, did you just ask my best friend to marry you? Before either of them could answer, every phone in the room buzzed at exactly the same moment. Ethan glanced at his screen, and for the first time since Lily had met him, the color disappeared from his face. A new headline had just gone live across every news network in the country. It read, CEO Ethan Kang's secret bride identified. Ordinary flower shop worker under investigation for fraud. Lily's heart stopped. She had never committed a crime in her life. Yet somehow, the entire world now believed she had. The room fell into complete silence as Lily read the headline again and again, hoping it would somehow change. It didn't. Her photograph had already been pulled from her social media accounts. News anchors were calling her a mysterious woman who had tricked the country's most powerful CEO into marriage. Anonymous sources claimed she had a criminal past, forged financial records, and deliberately targeted wealthy men. None of it was true. Emma grabbed the tablet from Ethan's hands. This is ridiculous, she shouted. I've known Lily since we were children. She wouldn't steal $1 from anyone. Ethan's expression remained cold, but inside he was furious. Whoever planned this attack had moved faster than even he expected. They weren't just targeting him anymore. They were destroying Lily before the public even knew her name. His phone rang. It was the chairman of the board. Ethan answered without taking his eyes off Lily. "Speak." The voice on the other end sounded tense. "Mr. King, our stock has already started falling. Investors want an emergency explanation. If you don't make a public statement within the hour, this could become a financial disaster." Ethan replied calmly, "Schedule a press conference in 60 minutes. What will you announce?" "The truth." He ended the call before anyone could ask another question. Lily looked at him nervously. "The truth?" Ethan nodded once. "That you are my wife." Emma nearly dropped the tablet. "Wait, you're serious?" Lily slowly looked at her best friend. She hated lying to Emma, but the contract demanded complete secrecy. Before she could explain, Ethan spoke first. "We were planning to announce it privately after the wedding registration. Someone forced our hand." Emma blinked several times. "You mean you two actually got married?" Lily forced herself to nod. "Yes." Emma covered her mouth, completely speechless. "Yesterday you barely knew each other," Ethan answered before Lily had to. "Life doesn't always follow a schedule." Emma stared at both of them, clearly sensing that something didn't add up. But there was no time to ask questions. Outside, reporters continued gathering by the hundreds. Helicopters hovered above the building. Live broadcasts filled every television screen across the country. Ethan turned toward Lily. "We're leaving in 10 minutes. "Leaving?" "For the press conference." Lily's eyes widened. "I've never spoken in front of a camera in my life. You won't be alone. Millions of people are going to watch." "Yes. They're already calling me a criminal." Ethan stepped closer. His voice stayed calm but carried quiet confidence. "Then we'll show them who you really are." Something about those words settled the panic in her chest. For the first time since signing the contract, Lily felt that Ethan wasn't treating her like part of a business arrangement. He was protecting her. Emma finally found her voice. "Uncle Ethan, if someone is doing this, who do you think it is?" Ethan looked toward the city skyline. "Someone who believes fear makes people weak." His assistant entered once more carrying a small velvet box. "Sir, the wedding rings." Lily looked down in surprise. Ethan opened the box. Inside were 2 elegant platinum rings. They were simple, timeless, and far less flashy than she expected from a billionaire. Ethan picked up one ring and held it toward her. "The cameras will notice if we're not wearing them." Lily slowly extended her hand. Ethan carefully slipped the ring onto her finger without saying a word. It fit perfectly. She looked at him in surprise. "How did you know my ring size?" A faint smile appeared on his face. "The gloves you wore at the charity gala." Lily stared at him. "You noticed that?" "I notice everything." Emma watched the moment with growing confusion. It looked less like 2 strangers pretending to be married, and more like 2 people quietly learning how to trust each other. Ethan then held out his own hand. Lily hesitated before placing his ring on his finger. The instant she did, photographers outside somehow spotted them through the glass windows. Camera flashes exploded like lightning. Within seconds, social media flooded with blurry images of the billionaire CEO standing beside an unknown woman wearing matching wedding rings. Ethan's assistant looked at his phone in horror. "Sir, the photos are already viral." Ethan simply buttoned his suit jacket. "Good." Everyone looked at him. "Good?" the assistant repeated. Ethan nodded. "Now whoever started this attack knows I'm not backing down." A convoy of black vehicles waited beneath the building. Security guards formed a human wall as Ethan, Lily, and Emma entered the underground garage. The moment the car doors closed, the outside noise disappeared. Lily finally allowed herself to breathe. She looked at the sparkling ring on her finger. Just a few hours earlier, she had been arranging roses in a small flower shop. Now the entire world believed she was the wife of one of the richest men alive. It felt impossible. Ethan noticed her staring at the ring. "Regretting your decision already?" Lily looked out the window. I'm wondering if my normal life ended forever. Ethan answered honestly. It probably did. Before she could respond, every phone inside the vehicle buzzed again. Ethan opened the newest notification. This time, even he looked genuinely shocked. Someone had leaked a private surveillance video from 5 years earlier. The footage showed a young woman risking her own life to pull a frightened little boy out of a burning apartment building before firefighters arrived. The woman's face was blurry, but one detail was unmistakable: the silver bracelet on her wrist. Ethan slowly turned toward Lily. His eyes locked onto the exact same bracelet she was wearing now. His voice was barely above a whisper. "It can't be," Lily frowned. "What?" Ethan continued staring at the bracelet, memories crashing back after years of silence. "The woman who saved my nephew's life," he said quietly. "Was that you?" Lily instinctively looked down at the silver bracelet on her wrist. It was old, scratched, and worth almost nothing, yet Ethan stared at it as if he had just seen a ghost. She frowned in confusion. "What are you talking about?" Ethan reached for his phone again and replayed the surveillance footage. Flames swallowed the apartment entrance, while frightened neighbors screamed outside. A young woman rushed through the smoke without hesitation, disappeared inside the burning building, and moments later emerged carrying a terrified little boy in her arms. Her face was hidden by smoke and the poor camera quality, but the bracelet on her wrist flashed clearly as firefighters surrounded her. Ethan looked from the video to Lily's bracelet. 5 years ago," he said quietly, "my sister and her husband died in that fire. My 6-year-old nephew survived because an unknown woman refused to leave him behind." Lily's expression slowly changed. The memory returned like a forgotten dream. "That apartment," she whispered. "I was delivering flowers nearby." Ethan's heartbeat quickened. "You remember?" Lily nodded slowly. "I heard a child crying from inside. Everyone was waiting for firefighters, but I couldn't just stand there." Emma gasped from the seat beside her. "Lily, you never told me this." Lily gave a sad smile. "There wasn't much to tell. The firefighters arrived a minute later. The boy was safe. I went home." Ethan stared at her in disbelief. "You disappeared before anyone learned your name. I didn't save him for attention." Ethan looked out the window, struggling to control emotions he had buried for years. His nephew Noah had asked hundreds of times who rescued him. Ethan hired investigators, searched hospitals, offered rewards, and spent years trying to find the mysterious woman. Every lead ended in failure, and now she was sitting beside him wearing the same bracelet she had worn that night. Lily laughed softly. "I honestly forgot about it." Ethan looked back at her. "I never did." Silence filled the car. Emma watched both of them carefully, beginning to understand why her uncle had chosen Lily. It wasn't simply because she was kind. Fate had connected them years before either of them realized it. Before anyone could speak again, Ethan's security chief answered an urgent phone call. His expression darkened instantly. "Sir, we have another problem." Ethan sighed. "Report. Someone has leaked Miss Carter's home address online." Lily's eyes widened. "What?" "There are already dozens of reporters outside your apartment building. And—" he hesitated. Ethan's voice became sharper. "And what?" "Some online influencers are encouraging people to confront her in person." Emma covered her mouth. "That's insane." Ethan immediately made another call. "Send security to Mrs. Carter's apartment and the hospital where her mother is staying. Double the protection. No one gets near them without my approval." "Yes, sir." Ethan ended the call and looked at Lily. "From this moment forward, you won't be staying in your apartment. I can't just abandon it. It's no longer safe." Lily looked helplessly through the car window. Everything she owned was inside that tiny apartment. Her books, family photographs, childhood memories, her entire life. "My neighbors," she whispered. Ethan understood exactly what she was thinking. "We'll arrange protection for the entire building if necessary." She looked at him in surprise. "You'd do that?" "This attack began because of me. I won't allow innocent people to suffer for it." For the first time, Lily saw the man hidden behind the ruthless CEO everyone feared. Beneath the cold reputation was someone who quietly carried responsibility for everyone around him. The convoy finally arrived at Kong Global's International Media Center. Hundreds of journalists from around the world packed the massive conference hall. Camera flashes exploded the moment Ethan stepped onto the stage with Lily beside him. Questions were shouted from every direction. "Mr. Kang, is she really your wife? Did she trick you into marriage? Is she under criminal investigation? Is this a business merger?" Ethan ignored every question until he reached the podium. Then he took the microphone. The room fell completely silent. Ethan looked directly into the cameras broadcasting live across millions of homes. "My name is Ethan Kang. Today I will answer every false accusation being spread about my wife." Lily's heart pounded as thousands of lenses pointed toward her. Ethan continued. "First, Lily Carter is not under investigation. She has never been charged with any crime. Every rumor claiming otherwise is completely fabricated." Murmurs spread through the audience. Ethan wasn't finished. "Second, no one manipulated me into marriage. I asked Lily to become my wife because I respect the kind of person she is." Reporters immediately raised their hands. One journalist stood up. "Mr. Kang, many people believe an ordinary flower shop employee could never attract someone like you without hidden motives. Why did you choose her over the world's most famous women?" Every camera focused on Ethan, waiting for his answer. He looked at Lily for a brief moment before speaking. "Because fame doesn't impress me. Beauty fades. Money comes and goes." He paused, his voice becoming quieter. "But a woman who risks her own life to save a child she has never met." The entire room became perfectly still. Ethan turned toward Lily. "That kind of courage cannot be bought." Gasps echoed across the hall as reporters realized they had just uncovered a completely different story than the one they expected. Lily stood frozen, never imagining that the biggest secret of her life would be revealed on live television. But before another question could be asked, every screen behind the stage suddenly turned black. Seconds later, a masked figure appeared on the giant display. The voice was digitally distorted. "Congratulations on your wedding, Mr. Kang." The audience gasped. "But if you truly want to protect your new wife," the figure laughed softly, "ask her what really happened the night her father died." A wave of shocked whispers swept through the conference hall as every camera instantly turned toward Lily. She felt all the color drain from her face. Her father's death was the one subject she had spent her entire life trying to forget. The giant screen continued flickering while the masked figure remained perfectly still. "Everyone believes Lily Carter's father died in a tragic car accident," the distorted voice said. "But accidents can be arranged." Ethan's security team immediately rushed toward the control room, while technicians desperately tried to disconnect the broadcast. Nothing worked. Whoever hacked the system had taken complete control. Ethan stepped in front of Lily, shielding her from the endless flashes of cameras. His voice remained calm. "End the live stream." "We're trying, sir," one technician shouted through his earpiece. "They've locked us out." The masked figure laughed again. "You built one of the world's greatest technology companies, Mr. Kang, yet you still can't stop me." Lily could barely breathe. Memories she had buried for nearly 20 years came rushing back. She remembered the rain that night. She remembered waiting by the window for her father to return home. She remembered police officers knocking on the front door while her mother collapsed onto the floor crying. Ethan quietly took Lily's trembling hand. "Look at me." She slowly turned toward him. "Don't listen to whoever this is." Tears filled her eyes. "What if they're telling the truth?" Ethan answered without hesitation. "Then we'll find the truth together." His words reached her in a way nothing else could. For years she had carried every burden alone. Now, for the first time, someone was standing beside her, instead of asking her to fight by herself. Suddenly, the screens went black. Ethan's cybersecurity team finally regained control. The conference hall erupted into chaos as reporters shouted questions from every direction. Ethan took the microphone once more. "This press conference is over. Security immediately escorted Ethan and Lily through a private exit while Emma followed close behind. Once inside the armored vehicle, complete silence filled the cabin. Lily stared out the window without speaking. Ethan didn't pressure her. Several minutes passed before she finally whispered, "I was 9 years old." Ethan looked at her. "My father worked as a mechanic. We weren't rich, but we were happy." One night, he never came home. She swallowed hard. The police said another driver lost control during heavy rain. She paused. My mother believed it. I wanted to believe it too. Ethan listened carefully. But after today, now I don't know what to believe anymore. Ethan's phone vibrated. It was his chief investigator. "Sir, we've identified the source of today's cyber attack." Ethan answered immediately. "Who?" "The digital trail leads to someone inside Kang Global." Ethan's expression hardened. "A board member?" "No, sir." The investigator hesitated. "Someone much closer." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Say it. Your personal executive assistant, Daniel Cho." Emma gasped. "Impossible. Daniel has worked for Uncle Ethan for 8 years." Ethan remained silent. Daniel had been with him through billion-dollar negotiations, international expansions, and countless business crises. He knew every schedule, every password, every private meeting. If Daniel had betrayed him, then someone had been manipulating events from inside his closest circle all along. "Bring him in," Ethan ordered. "We already tried, sir. And he's disappeared." Ethan slowly lowered the phone. Daniel hadn't simply leaked information. He had planned his escape. That meant the betrayal had been prepared long before Lily entered Ethan's life. Meanwhile, inside an abandoned warehouse across the city, Daniel removed a wireless earpiece and smiled as he watched the news coverage. A shadowy figure stepped out from the darkness. Did Ethan believe the message? Daniel nodded confidently. Not completely, but Lily will begin questioning everything she knows about her father's death. The mysterious person smiled. Good. Confused people make mistakes. Daniel looked uneasy. What if Ethan discovers the old files? The figure's smile disappeared. He won't. And if he does? The stranger's voice became cold. Then, neither Ethan Kang nor his new wife will live long enough to expose the truth. Back inside the moving car, Ethan's phone buzzed once again. This time it wasn't his investigator. It was his nephew Noah, now 11 years old. Ethan answered immediately. "Hi, Noah." The young boy sounded excited. "Uncle Ethan, I just watched you on TV." Ethan smiled slightly. "You weren't supposed to skip homework." Noah laughed. "Is it true? Did you really get married?" Ethan glanced toward Lily before answering. "Yes." Noah became quiet for a moment. Then he asked the question Ethan never expected. "Uncle, is she the angel?" Ethan froze. "What did you say?" "The lady who saved me from the fire." Ethan looked at Lily again. Noah continued. "I never forgot her voice. When she spoke on television today, I recognized it." Lily slowly turned toward Ethan as he lowered the phone. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them needed to. 5 years after risking her life to save a frightened little boy, that same boy had recognized her voice from a single sentence spoken on live television. Fate had brought them together long before either of them understood why. But before Ethan could explain anything, his investigator called again, sounding more panicked than before. "Mr. Kang, we've searched Daniel Cho's apartment." Ethan's voice became sharp. "What did you find?" There was a long pause before the investigator answered. "Sir, your missing assistant left behind a locked briefcase." "Open it." "We did." Another pause. Inside was a 20-year-old photograph. Ethan frowned. "Of who?" The investigator took a slow breath. "Your father," standing beside Lily Carter's father, smiling like best friends. The moment Ethan heard those words, every sound around him seemed to disappear. He stared through the windshield as if the city itself had suddenly become unfamiliar. "Send me the photograph," he ordered. Seconds later, his phone vibrated. Ethan opened the image, and his breath caught. The faded photograph showed 2 young men standing shoulder to shoulder in front of a small auto repair garage. One was unmistakably his late father, Richard Kang, smiling more warmly than Ethan had ever seen in any family album. Beside him stood Lily's father, Michael Carter, laughing with one arm around Richard's shoulder. Written across the bottom in faded blue ink were the words, "Brothers by choice, friends for life." Summer 2006, Lily leaned closer and covered her mouth. "That's my dad," she whispered. Tears filled her eyes as she gently touched the image on the screen. "I've never seen this picture before." Emma looked between them in disbelief. "Your fathers knew each other?" Ethan slowly nodded. "Not just knew each other." He looked at the inscription again. "They were incredibly close." 1,000 unanswered questions flooded his mind. If their fathers had once been best friends, why had neither family ever mentioned the other? Why had every trace of that friendship disappeared? And why would someone hide the photograph for 20 years? Ethan immediately called his investigator again. "Find out everything about that garage. Every employee, every business record, every insurance claim. I don't care how old the files are. Already working on it, sir. And send security to my family estate. Search my father's old office from top to bottom." "Yes, sir." Lily sat quietly, overwhelmed by emotions she couldn't explain. All her life she believed her father had lived an ordinary life fixing cars until a tragic accident ended everything. Now she was discovering he had once shared a deep friendship with one of the wealthiest families in the country. Nothing made sense anymore. As the convoy entered the private gates of Ethan's estate, dozens of security guards surrounded the property. The mansion looked more like a fortress than a home. Lily stepped out of the vehicle and stared at the enormous building. It was beautiful, but strangely lonely. Ethan noticed her expression. "It feels too quiet," she said softly. Ethan gave a faint smile. "It usually is." Before they could enter, another car pulled through the gates at high speed. A young boy jumped out before the driver had even stopped completely. "Uncle Ethan!" Noah ran straight toward them. Ethan barely had time to react before Noah hugged him tightly. Then the boy looked at Lily with wide eyes. For several long seconds, he simply stared at her. Finally, he smiled. "It's really you." Lily looked confused. Noah slowly walked closer. "You held my hand the whole time in the fire." Lily's eyes widened. "You remember that?" Noah nodded. "You kept telling me not to be scared because heroes always come." Lily laughed softly through her tears. "I actually said that?" "You did." Without thinking, Noah wrapped his arms around her. Lily instinctively hugged him back. Ethan watched silently. For years, Noah had struggled to trust strangers after losing his parents. Yet within seconds, he had accepted Lily completely. It wasn't forced. It wasn't polite. It was genuine. Emma quietly smiled. "I think he found the person he's been looking for all these years." As they entered the mansion, Ethan's head butler greeted them. "Welcome home, sir." The elderly man looked at Lily and froze. His eyes became unusually emotional. "Miss," Ethan immediately noticed. "James, what's wrong?" The old butler looked at Lily again before answering. "Nothing, sir." Ethan stepped closer. "Don't lie to me." James hesitated. "She reminds me of someone." Lily smiled politely. "Who?" The old man's hands trembled slightly. "Your mother." Lily's smile disappeared. "You knew my mother?" James slowly nodded. "Many years ago." Ethan's heart began racing again. "Explain." James looked toward the fireplace where dozens of old family photographs were displayed. "Before your father became successful, the Carter family visited this house often." Lily felt dizzy. "I've never been here before." James looked at her with sadness. "Not since you were a little girl." Complete silence filled the room. Ethan stared at James in disbelief. "Are you saying Lily has been inside this house before?" The old butler nodded. "Many times." Lily shook her head. "That's impossible. I would remember." James sighed. "You were only 4 years old." He slowly walked toward an old storage cabinet hidden beneath the staircase. After unlocking it with a small brass key, he removed a dusty wooden box that had clearly remained untouched for years. "Your father asked me to protect this if anything ever happened to him." Ethan frowned. "Why didn't you tell me?" James looked ashamed. "Because your grandfather ordered everyone to forget the Carter family ever existed." Lily's breathing became uneven. James carefully opened the wooden box. Inside were dozens of old photographs, handwritten letters, newspaper clippings, and a small VHS videotape labeled in faded handwriting. Asterisk. For Ethan and Lily, only watch this together if we're no longer here. Sht. No one spoke. Ethan slowly picked up the tape with trembling hands. Two fathers, one hidden friendship, one message left for their children decades earlier. Whatever was recorded on that tape had remained buried for 20 years. And someone had clearly been willing to kill to keep it hidden. Ethan carefully carried the old VHS tape into the mansion's private media room while everyone followed in complete silence. The tape was dusty, its label faded with age, yet it suddenly felt more valuable than every company Ethan owned. James connected an old VHS player that had not been used in years. The machine whirred to life, and after several seconds of static, the screen flickered. Two smiling men appeared sitting beside each other on a wooden bench outside the same repair garage from the old photograph. Ethan immediately recognized his father. Lily instantly recognized hers. They looked younger, happier, and completely unaware of the tragedy waiting in their future. Richard Kang laughed into the camera. Well, if you're watching this, then Michael and I were right. Something happened to us. Michael Carter shook his head with a smile. Let's hope we're just old men laughing about this one day. But if not, there are some things our children deserve to know. Ethan and Lily exchanged nervous glances. Richard continued, Our families built the first version of Kang Technologies together. Michael designed the original engine control software, while I found investors. Every dream we had started in that tiny garage. Lily stared at the screen in disbelief. Her father had never told her any of this. Michael spoke next. When the company finally became successful, greedy people wanted control. They offered us money to force Richard out. We refused. Richard's smile faded. That's when the threats began. The room became perfectly silent. Michael leaned closer to the camera. If anyone tells our children we betrayed each other, don't believe them. We remained brothers until the very end. Ethan felt his throat tighten. His entire life he had believed his father built the company alone. The truth had been hidden from him for decades. Richard looked directly into the camera as if speaking to Ethan himself. Son, if you're watching this, remember one thing. Wealth means nothing if you lose your humanity. The people who truly matter are the ones who stand beside you when you have nothing. Then Michael smiled warmly. And Lily, if life ever becomes difficult, don't let pain harden your heart. Your kindness is your greatest strength. Never trade it for revenge. Tears rolled down Lily's cheeks. Those were the words her father used to tell her every birthday before he died. Richard reached into his pocket and held up a folded document. We've hidden legal evidence proving Michael owns half the original company. If either of us dies unexpectedly, our children must find it together. Trust no one else. The video suddenly shook as someone off-camera shouted a warning. Richard looked toward the sound. Michael quickly stood. The recording became unstable. Just before the screen went black, Michael turned back toward the camera. Ethan, protect Lily. Lily, trust Ethan. One day you'll need each other far more than you realize. The tape ended. No one in the room spoke for several long moments. Ethan slowly lowered his head. Everything finally made sense. His father had never abandoned Michael. Lily's father had never betrayed the Kang family. Someone had erased their history and built an empire on lies. James quietly stepped forward, carrying an old leather folder he had found beneath the wooden box. Sir, I almost forgot. Ethan opened it carefully. Inside was the original partnership agreement signed by both fathers, proving they had built the company together from the beginning. Attached to it was another sealed envelope addressed in Richard Kang's handwriting. Ethan broke the seal and unfolded the letter. To my son Ethan, he read softly, if you have found this letter, then you have also found Lily. That means fate succeeded where we could not. Don't measure her worth by her background. Measure it by her heart. If she ever stands beside you, never let her stand alone. Ethan looked up at Lily. She was crying quietly, holding the old photograph of their fathers. He walked toward her without saying a word. I'm sorry, he whispered. Not for marrying you, but because our families lost so many years they should have shared. Lily smiled through her tears. None of this was your fault. Noah suddenly ran into the room carrying two framed photographs. Look what I found. One picture showed Ethan as a little boy sitting beside his father. The other showed 4-year-old Lily sitting on Michael's shoulders. On the back of both photographs was the exact same date. The families had spent that day together. Lily laughed softly. We actually met before. Ethan smiled for the first time in what felt like forever. Looks like we did. Emma shook her head in amazement. All this time, you two thought you were strangers. James wiped away a tear and smiled. Some promises simply take longer to keep. At that moment, Ethan's investigator called with one final update. Daniel Cho and the mysterious mastermind had both been arrested after trying to flee the country. Hidden financial records, witness statements, and the original evidence connected them to years of fraud, blackmail, and the cover-up that separated both families. The truth would finally come to light, and every stolen part of history would be restored. Weeks later, Kang Global publicly recognized Michael Carter as a founding partner, creating a charitable foundation in his honor to support families struggling with medical expenses and children who dreamed of becoming engineers. Lily continued visiting the flower shop where she had once worked, never forgetting the ordinary people who had encouraged her through life's hardest days. Ethan often joined her without announcing who he was, quietly helping customers carry flowers or paying for bouquets when someone couldn't afford them. The employees eventually stopped seeing him as a billionaire and simply called him Mr. Ethan. One evening, as the sun set outside the little flower shop where everything had begun, Ethan looked at Lily and smiled. The contract ended today. Lily looked at the ring still resting on her finger. I know. Ethan reached into his pocket, removed the folded agreement, and tore it into tiny pieces before letting them fall into the breeze. This time, he said softly, I'd like to ask without a contract, without pressure, and without conditions. Lily slipped her hand into his and smiled the same gentle smile that had changed countless lives long before she ever met him. My answer is yes. Their story had started with a deal worth millions, but in the end, the greatest treasure either of them found was the family, trust, and love that had been waiting for them all along. 1 year later, the grand ballroom that had once been filled with rumors, suspicion, and flashing cameras was overflowing with genuine smiles instead. This time, there were no secret contracts, no hidden enemies, and no fake promises. Friends, employees, neighbors from Lily's old apartment building, doctors who had cared for her mother, children from the Michael Carter Foundation, and business leaders from around the world gathered under one roof to celebrate the wedding. Ethan and Lily had chosen with their own hearts. Noah proudly stood beside Ethan as his best man, grinning from ear to ear. Emma wiped away happy tears while teasing Lily one last time before the ceremony. James, the loyal butler who had protected the truth for decades, smiled with quiet pride as he watched two families finally become one again. Lily's mother, now completely healthy after her successful treatment, slowly walked her daughter down the aisle. Every step reminded Lily how close she had come to losing everything. Ethan waited at the altar, not as the feared billionaire CEO the world once called the Ice King, but as a man who had finally found peace. When Lily reached him, neither of them spoke for a moment. They simply smiled, remembering the impossible journey that had brought them there. The officiant began the ceremony, but many guests were already wiping away tears. Ethan took Lily's hands and said, "The first time I asked you to marry me, I offered money because I didn't know how else to ask someone to stay. Today I have nothing to offer except my heart, my loyalty, and every tomorrow I have left. If you'll still have me, I promise to spend the rest of my life earning the kindness that made me fall in love with you." Lily smiled through happy tears. The first time I said yes, I believed I was saving my mother. I never imagined I would also find the family I had lost, the truth my father protected, and the man who would become my best friend. You taught me that love isn't measured by expensive gifts or grand words. It's measured by who stands beside you when life becomes difficult. And you've never let go of my hand. As they exchanged rings once again, the guests erupted into applause. Noah laughed loudly. Now this is the real wedding! Everyone smiled. Outside, reporters waited as they had a year before. But this time the headlines were completely different. Instead of scandals and lies, newspapers around the world celebrated the couple whose kindness had transformed one of the largest companies on Earth. Conglobal became known not only for innovation, but also for its generosity. Employees received better health care. Scholarships were created for students from low-income families, and thousands of struggling parents received financial assistance through the Michael Carter Foundation. Ethan insisted every major business decision begin with one simple question. Will this help people? The phrase became part of the company's culture. Lily never stopped being herself. She still volunteered at hospitals, visited elderly neighbors, delivered flowers to lonely patients, and quietly paid for strangers whenever she saw someone in need. Whenever people praised her for marrying a billionaire, she simply smiled and replied, "Money changed my circumstances. Kindness changed my life." Years passed happily. Noah grew into a confident young man and often joked that he had been responsible for introducing his uncle to his future wife, even though fate had arranged their meeting long before any of them understood it. Emma eventually found love as well, always laughing that she would never again underestimate unexpected romances. James retired peacefully after seeing the promise he had protected for 2 decades finally fulfilled. One spring afternoon, Ethan and Lily visited the small repair garage where their fathers had once dreamed together. The building had been restored into a community innovation center where young inventors could learn engineering for free. Hanging at the entrance was the original photograph of Richard Kang and Michael Carter with the words, "Brothers by choice, friends for life." Beneath it was another plaque that read, "Some legacies are built with money. The greatest are built with loyalty, compassion, and love." Ethan wrapped his arm around Lily as they stood before the photograph. "They never got to see this," he said quietly. Lily looked at the smiling faces of their fathers. "Maybe they always believed we would." At that moment, Noah called from across the courtyard, holding the hands of 2 excited children who were racing toward them. Ethan and Lily smiled as the little ones laughed, filling the old garage with the sound of hope and new beginnings. The past had finally found peace. The truth had been restored. Broken families had become whole again. And a marriage that began as a business agreement had grown into a love that neither wealth nor time could ever measure. Sometimes the greatest miracles don't begin with love at first sight. Sometimes they begin with a single act of kindness that quietly changes 2 lives forever, proving that the strongest hearts are not the ones protected by walls, but the ones brave enough to keep loving despite every reason to stop. Like, subscribe, and support my channel. I really need your support. If you enjoy my video, please share it and leave your feedback in the comments.